Welcome to this Believe in NFL Draft Prospect podcast. This is an interview edition. Of course, you know it's a Thursday, so we are bringing you an inside look into some of the outstanding football players all across the nation. I have a player who it's surprising to me, and I don't understand it quite, to be frank with you, why no one is talking enough about this young man who is a defensive end out of Colorado State, Scott Patchan, who started his career at the University of Miami, took the grad transfer route in 2020 in only 4 games that they were able to play, 7.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. Was one of the best defensive players in all of college football, and I feel like we need to start talking about it a little more. So I'm now welcoming Scott to the show. Scott, appreciate you, man, just taking a little bit of time. I know it's crazy times, but I thank you so much for just taking a few minutes with me today.
No, thank you for having me on, man. I'm excited to get going.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I want to kind of paint it, Scott, a little bit of a journey. I know, obviously, your dad, the Miami ties, right? He played there in the 80s, was a very successful football player. You had a brother that was also a college football player, spent some time at the University of Florida, and I think Boston College, if I remember that correctly. So you have had, you come from a football family. You have the U roots. You have the Miami roots. IMG Academy coming out. I know you're from Tampa, Florida, I believe is the hometown. So I know it's in your blood a little bit, University of Miami, but can you just talk to me coming out of high school, why the U was the best spot for you ultimately?
Well, first and foremost, that was my dream school growing up. All the 30 for 30s and then, watching it on game day with my dad, that to me, there was no other place I really wanted to be. And it's funny because looking back on it now, I'm here obviously with Coach Dazio at Colorado State, but at the time, my brother Matt was finishing up his last year at Boston College. Now, BC and Miami were the only schools I was really considering, and it was about, I want to say, 50 degrees on a Friday night walkthrough before his senior night game, and the coaches were treating it as unofficial as well because I was also a recruit there. That being said, it was 50 degrees. I'm a Florida boy. I was probably 16 years old, shivering, not ever experiencing anything really cold, and it's just funny, because coach was calling me soft because I was getting cold. And then here I am. I committed to Miami like a few weeks later, because I was like, I'm just going to go further south. I'm going to hit warmer weather. So, But it's funny how it all works out, man. I'm happy to be with Coach Dazio, man. There's no better staff, honestly, that treats players well. And I'm just happy to be with him and surrounded by great people.
Mm-hmm. And obviously that route has now taken you to being a star for the Colorado State football team. And like I said, the tape this past year I was really excited about. Can you talk to me, Scott, a little bit about we talked about it before we started, but I know COVID kind of threw a wrench into a lot of plans. There were games canceled, people suffering. Mm-hmm. For you, from an individual perspective and a team perspective as well, how do you guys feel like you were able to navigate the craziness of the pandemic and to the best of your ability? And how excited are you now that you got that crazy season out of the way? Now you can kind of get back to what is somewhat more of normalcy.
Well, to be honest with you, too, it kind of threw a wrench in right from the get-go with off-season training in the summer. We had a pause on our season, or a pause on our training from a summer standpoint, I think around late July. There were some rumors from individuals on the team that weren't necessarily happy with their playing time or their expected playing time. I think they were just creating false narratives around the program, and it really misled, the people here at CSU. And so they wanted to be diligent and thorough throughout the investigation and making sure we were following all protocols and things of that nature, which we were. But so that took away time immediately from off-season programs. So we lost that time. We can't get that back. And then we get, a little extended, training camp, and then we jump into the season. And then from that standpoint, it became a next up mentality as games were getting canceled. We saw half of our season gone because of COVID for the most part, which was disappointing from a player standpoint because you want to compete. You're a player, that's why you play the game. You love it. So from that perspective, it was disappointing, but the only thing we could do was move forward. And that's a great, representation of how you should handle life. You're going to be throwing things at you that you're not ready for and expecting. And it's all about how you just take them and move forward. So that's exactly the mentality majority of us had to have. Now, I think that was harder for some of the younger guys because, they weren't either mature enough or just, able to accept that and understand that. But I think it did actually help a lot of guys grow up at the same time too, when they weren't expecting to, and something in a situation like that. So I think overall it was definitely a growing season for a lot of people, but I think moving towards, this year, moving past, COVID, I think, the best part is just actually going to be able to, get that time that we missed, if that makes sense. Be able to grow through an off-season program, hit the ground running when you get to the training camp, and then let that roll forward throughout the season, and then get an entire full season at that. I know with scheduling, the Mountain West was kind of following Pac-12 as far as canceling the season, and then the rumors were that was going to start back, and then we start back late. We only get to schedule 8 games instead of the normal 12, and then we lose half of those. That's another thing too. I mean, imagine if we had scheduled the original 12, maybe we get in 6 games. That's another thought. But can't have this hindsight look either. So we got 8. We only played 4. So moving forward, it's going to be nice, is my point, to play an entire full 12.
Yeah,
so.
and I'd like to mention there, Scott, because I would agree that it has to be a very, for the younger players, right? The maturity that you talked about, kind of accepting it like it's, and it's tough to handle. For you, though, it kind of in a different situation, because I want to think of, like, from your angle, is like you're grad transferring, you're going into a new environment where you are trying to be a leader of the football team. You've been there, done that, you're more experienced. How difficult was it for you from that perspective, knowing that, like, it's a quick, acclimation and trying to get your role in the team and trying to be a leader, and then you're throwing in all these wrenches?
It wasn't easy. I will say that it was easier when you had guidance from, great coaches, I will say. And then I try to find other leaders on the team, for especially the D-line room, like Manny Jones and Shelby McBride. I just try to, be around those two as much as I could. Basically, sorry about that. I try to do that as much as I could, honestly, just to, go ahead and be, a leader and somebody on the team that others can, look up to as far as a role model, So that's, and I had to take an all business approach to it and really, be diligent about the preparation, for games and all of that.
Mm-hmm. And I know you had played, obviously, at Miami, and you had been a contributor for them. And I have to imagine, even though it was only 4 games, the production that you were able to have in a smaller sample size, again, the 7.5 tackles for loss, the 5.5 sacks, like, you were one of the more productive players in all of college football, defensive line wise, when you look at per game averages. What was it like, just a small sample size, and kind of seeing your development as a football player in a new environment?
It was nice. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question again? I'm trying to analyze all of that.
No, you're fine. I was just saying, like, you're in a new environment and you had been a contributor, but now you're seeing the stat sheet really start to ascend here, because you're taking your game to a next level. And for the per game, I mean, I would argue that you were maybe the most productive defensive lineman, even though it was a smaller sample size. So just knowing that you were able to get that opportunity, capitalize on it, and then take the game to the next level.
No, it meant a lot to me. So, and thank you for repeating it again, because now I can actually analyze it and
of course
answer probably a little better. So for me, it meant the world. That's the entire reason I wanted to transfer, because I didn't feel like I was getting, first of all, the development I really looked forward to at Miami. And that's why when I was during the recruiting process looking for a coach that could cover all phases of being, an every down defensive end. And that's, I think, what I found in Coach Antoine Smith here at CSU. But that being said, before, it meant the world to me that I could actually go out and prove that.
Sure.
I think it meant the world to me as far as being able to actually just go out and show that everybody that this is what I can do. Like, I know coming out of high school, I was a high-rated guy. I went to IMG, went to Miami, and there was just all this, expectations that I just didn't reach there. And for whatever reason, and for a multitude of reasons, it didn't actually happen the way I wanted it to. I would have loved to have been this player at Miami, but I just didn't feel like I had all the resources and things in that nature set up there that helped me succeed like I am here. And that's okay. I've moved on past that. There's no hard feelings towards Miami. It's always going to be my almost cussed there. It's always going to be my, dream school that I always wanted to attend. I did that, and I got an undergraduate degree from Miami, and I'll always be happy and thankful for that. But tying back into the question now, I was just so thankful for, at least the 4 games being able to show that. And then, now the talks are, is he going to be able to actually sustain that for 12 games? So I'm looking forward to that being my next challenge this season, and attacking that from that standpoint too.
And Scott, for a guy that's been around football, again, from a football family your entire life, I'm curious, are there some players, past, present, growing up, that are some players that you watch a lot, you emulate to a degree, or just try to take things from their game specifically?
Yeah, JJ Watt's my favorite player. If you talk to any of my teammates, past and present, they're going to say that I'll argue about that guy 24/7. But so I'll watch him. I'll watch his brother. I'll watch a lot of the other defensive ends in the league. I train with the guy Chuck Smith. He trains a lot of the pro guys. And so he would have us watch clips of Von Miller. Who was the guy that played for the Colts?
Dwight Freeney.
Dwight Freeney. Sorry, thank you.
No, you're good.
Well, actually both of them, but Dwight Freeney when we were looking at spin moves in general. But so like I would watch him a lot. Jared Allen, an older guy. Just players generally like to have success at the next level. What are they doing? And then being able to pick apart how they actually do. And go about their business in preparation for a game and how they attack offensive tackles in general.
Mm-hmm. And you talked a little bit about being an all-around defensive end. You talked about, hey, the next step is doing it on a larger volume of snaps, a larger sample size. For you to be the best possible football player and to ascend to being, without question, one of the best defensive ends in all of college football, what are the next steps from you from a technical standpoint, physical standpoint? Like, what is going to separate you to being that type of player?
Just taking it to the next level, being a step better than I was last year. And I think building off of that, looking at all the tape, I've watched the 4 games. I can't even tell you how many times I've gone back and forth on what I could have done better on this play and that play. So I'm hard on myself when I watch my own film, and then I obviously get graded by the coaches. And then I got an older brother, Matt, who played the game. Obviously, he's going to send me his grades for the games. And then I got my dad's grade. He played that too, and he played at a high level. Both my dad and my brother have national championship rings, so they know what it takes. And I think from that perspective, I'm able to, grow my game even more so. And I'm not even close to my ceiling, if that makes sense, in my mind. But
yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. Yeah, and I know that you were obviously a beneficiary because a lot of players got the extra year of eligibility. You were able to come back. For you, was there ever a debate? Because I know you only played 4 games, but obviously with the production you had, was there ever a debate like maybe this is the right time to go to the NFL? Should I take the extra year of eligibility? Was there ever that conversation?
Oh, there was. Yeah, it was a long conversation. Between my dad, my brother, the head coach, my position coach, and I was just trying to understand from a standpoint where I stood as far as how scouts were looking at me, where I'd end up going in the draft, what type of player I'd be, and then you looked at it from a perspective of the Senior Bowl versus East West Shrine being canceled, and the other one, I forget off the top of my name.
NFLPA Bowl got canceled too.
Yeah, yep. So it just ended up not being the best situation, but at the same time, I was able to actually, make the best decision for myself moving forward. And it was an easy decision too once I looked at it from when I come back, I'll be able to be around such great people. And I can't stress that enough, being around Coach Dazio and this staff, it makes playing football awesome. They're diligent in preparation for the game. They're understanding that you're an athlete and you can take care of your body. And at the same time, understanding the growth you need to take as a player to get better. And I think when you get around that, and then you get around just how they're great people off the field too, and you can actually hold a conversation with them, and you can, ask them, things about just questions in life in general, and then just sit there and hold a conversation for hours on end, and I just think the people he's brought into the staff, they're all built that way, so I'm just really appreciative of that. And, as an athlete, I think anybody can almost appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. And I know I asked you about, you taking your game to the next level, and what is kind of going to be the indicator that you have done so and the reason for you to ascend to that level. For the team now, having a more normal season, the full schedule, hopefully, knock on wood that everything is to fruition. What are the standards that you guys have set? What are some goals that would make it a perfect ending to your career?
Helping the school reach things that they haven't done. So I know we've got games where, Boise State, we've never beaten Boise State. That's one of the things here. I know we got a couple rivalry games. So just certain things along the way, not necessarily looking at it big picture wise, but, when those opportunities do present itself, capitalize, and so as far as the leaders, we're concerned with just holding everybody accountable, making sure everybody's doing extra film study, making sure everybody's not cutting reps in the weight room, all the things it takes to actually be a productive player in college football, let alone be a winner, because you've got 11 different guys on a team, on a field at any given down, there's 22 different variables. I mean, you know, and then you talk about all the different plays you can learn, everything of that nature. You got to be prepared. I mean, football is not easy as just hitting somebody repetitively over and over, as many people would like to perceive it as. So that being said, you've got to be a smart player. You got to be a tough player. And you just got to be a player that's ready for all the obstacles and different things thrown at you. And I think once you're able to handle those, you know, you're able to be, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Just, you know, leave a positive mark on that play and, you know, plays build up in the game. So, you know, then you have a positive game and you come out with a win, you know. And I think from that nature, just kind of tying it back again, you know, being leaders on the team, we have to do a good job of making sure players are handling their businesses and being accountable.
Mm-hmm. And the last question I have for you, Scott, is I've been very impressed by your play last season. I think you're going to play in the NFL. I think you're going to be drafted, all that good stuff. For you now, kind of just thinking back on it, how long has that been a dream to play in the NFL, coming from the football family? And what would the blessing be like for the moment that call happens, that you are now an official professional athlete?
It'll mean the world to me, you know, even more than all the productiveness I've had these past 4 games, you know. Coming from a football family, it'd mean the world to them because they see all the, you know, the downs, the ups, you know, so it would mean the world to me and my family. If I talk about it anymore, I'd be over-explaining.
I love it, man. I think that's a perfect way to end it again here with Scott Patchan, star defensive end out of Colorado State. Scott, appreciate it, man, again, so much. This was awesome. I know it was a long time coming, but I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, and I'm definitely rooting for you in the fall, man. I know we'll be in good contact during the NFL draft season officially kicks off as well.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you for having me on, man.